Hi there, and welcome to PT26's review of the Cimarron / Uberti Type 2 Richards conversion. This is the box it'll come in when you buy it at a store. If you don't buy it at a store, it might not have the box, but this is the gun itself. It's kind of a black powder conversion. If you don't know anything about black powder guns, you're probably going to be wondering why there's a lot of stuff on there that doesn't need to be. But back in the 1860s, we'll start there. These guns had a sealed back end on the chamber and were loaded through the front of the cylinder. And they had a loading lever that was right here that was basically a ramrod. And in this transitional model, which is what this is called, Type 2 Richards Conversion Transitional Model, it still has the place for that because it was actually a conversion instead of the non-transitional model, or the what they call that, open top, the 1871 or 1872 open top. They just kind of took this whole assembly off and made a new one. Okay, basically what they did to convert these was cut the back end off of the cylinder and forge weld what is currently on there. As you can see, if you open this up, it's just a normal cylinder. Okay, this one was probably just made that way because this is a replica. But back in the day, that's how they actually used to do them. And in place of that ramrod I was talking about, they put in this, what do you want to call that, ejector rod assembly. That's probably the best way to put it. And it basically just went in place of the ramrod. And in this one, since it's kind of a, I don't know, a modern version of this, this would have originally been in 44 Colt rimfire, or 38 Colt rimfire if it was a Navy instead of an Army. This is an Army. Anyway, the difference between the Navy and the Army was the caliber. But anyway, they would have been rimfire because on the spur of the hammer it wouldn't have had this. They added that in the modern conversion. It would have just had this, which would have struck the rim of the cartridge. But anyway, it's very hard to get 44 Colt rimfire, so Uberti and Cimarron decided to make this one in 45 long Colt, which is the round that the 1873 Colt Peacemaker, Colt Single Action Army, whatever you want to call it, was made in. And it's stamped a couple of places on here that it is 45 Colt, just so you don't get it mixed up. They could have done this in like a 4440, but it really wouldn't have been true to it. I think they do offer it in that if you really want it in 44. I'd personally rather have the 45, so I gave up a little bit of authenticity for better caliber, I think. Anyway, also in this modern remake of it, they use a one-piece grip instead of a two-piece grip, which most of them had back then. That's why there's no screw through there. It's just a lot easier, I think, for them to use a one-piece grip now. And this is safe to use modern cartridges in because it's a modern-made gun. I don't think I forgot anything there. That's pretty much everything you want to know about it being a black powder conversion. One of the cool things about that, though, is, I forgot to mention, the sights. The sight for this is actually, you can see it, on the back of the hammer. They're really fine and really precise. It's marked 1871 there. Oh, that's what that says. But anyway, let's get down to the review. That's enough about it being a black powder conversion. Basically, I'm going to talk about cowboy gun philosophy in general. You know, where it has its place, where it doesn't. Here, let me zoom in too so you can get a better view. Okay, and we're back. Hopefully that's a little bit better view for you guys now that I'm not going to be messing with it that much. Still kind of getting used to doing the reviews in here. Anyway, philosophy-wise on cowboy handguns and cowboy rifles, I'll talk about that too. Basically, if you're going to do some sort of historical shooting, or maybe you just enjoy that type of gun, it's fun to own them. They don't really have that big of a place in a prepper's gun collection or in a military gun collection, because they just aren't as practical as even a modern double action revolver, which I actually have an example of here. This is a much more practical gun. This is a Colt Trooper Mark III. It's 357 Magnum. It's a much more practical option than this gun. Well, it costs about the same too. That's another thing about cowboy guns, is the cost. I'll talk about that later in that talking point though. But unless you just really want a cowboy gun for fun, there's not too many POUs this fits into. If you're like on a ranch or something and you just want to carry a sidearm, yeah, that's perfect. That's what it was originally made for. And cowboy rifles, I think it still have a place. I mean, if you can't afford a really good AK-47 or an AR-15, Winchester 94 and 30-30 is a damn good combat gun. I'll be the first to say that. I mean, a lot of people kind of put down lever guns, saying, you know, they aren't any good anymore, but I know for a fact, what was his name? Jeff Cooper from Gunsight loved the 30-30 lever action. It's one of like his ideal scout rifles. If you fall into that whole concept, I don't really follow it too much myself, but I know he was really into those. He's kind of a famous guy in the gun community, so yeah, that speaks to the fact it's still a viable combat weapon. Now it's slow to reload. It only holds, I think, 10 rounds in 45 long Colt and probably like 6 or 7 in 30-30. But, you know, it's still pretty viable. And I would also say, in the right hands, a cowboy style revolver can be extremely deadly. Especially if it's only like 1 or 2 people that the person is facing. If it's more than 6 people, they're just kind of screwed. That's why they always used to carry 2 revolvers back in the day, or a lot of people did. So these things are so slow to reload, especially when they were black powder guns, that it was just better to carry 2. Okay, I'm going to go to track record. This gun in particular is kind of new, but the gun it's based off of is where I'm going to take its track record from. As far as I've seen, this is every bit as reliable and every bit at the same quality as an old Colt. Okay? It's made pretty much at the same standards. The only thing I would say isn't maybe the springs in it, and the quality of the case hardening is not the same. But other than that, it's got about the same track record, which is utter reliability. If you need a gun to, know it is going to fire every single time you pull the trigger, this is your gun. Because, let me give you a different view. There's nothing that can go wrong with this gun. I mean, hell, even in a double action revolver like this one, there's a lot of things that could break. In that gun, there's not too many moving parts, as a matter of fact. I mean, a couple of springs, the trigger and the hammer, that's about it. Okay, so I would say track record is good. The caliber is probably one of the best man stoppers on the planet, in my opinion. It's a 45 long Colt. A lot of people say, oh, the 45 ACP is the best. Well, no, not really, because the 45 ACP was this cartridge shortened, made a little bit less powerful, and made to go into an auto pistol. This is the original, and I think it's a little bit better, personally. It's a decent caliber. Magazine, non-applicable here. Accuracy. This gun is amazingly accurate. I've only shot this gun one-handed, to put it that way. I haven't felt the need to use two hands with this gun. At 15 yards, one-handed, it does about 1.5-inch group. At 25 yards, it's about a 2-inch group, one-handed. That's amazing. I attribute that to the awesome sights that this has. Those little fine, tiny sights, aren't very good, combat-wise, because they aren't very fast, but they are deadly accurate, and I can see why guys like Wild Bill Hickok would have kept these guns instead of going to a Colt Peacemaker, because the Colt Peacemaker sights, in my opinion, suck. They're combat sights. They're meant for hitting a man 5 yards away, not for popping 10 cans at 25 yards. Which, personally, I find that, point shooting is what you're going to be doing most of the time in combat anyway. I mean, unless it's out, 15, 25 yards, in which you need better sights than combat sights anyway, so I don't really get the point of those. Okay, size and weight. It is a full-size revolver. It's a little bit longer than even most modern revolvers, as you could tell. A couple of times I compared it to this. Here, let me put this down right next to it and you can really see. It's a good inch longer, I would say, overall. Move you down. You can see it there. About 1 inch longer overall. And it weighs a good couple of pounds. I mean, it's all steel and wood technology. There's no polymer, no plastics. It's a heavy gun. Ergonomics. That's actually a pretty good argument on this. A lot of people will say the ergonomics suck because they compare it to a Glock. But most cowboy guys would say the ergonomics rock because they compare it. Sorry, ergonomics rock because they compare it to a flintlock pistol. What's the other one? The pepper box pistol. All those guns that came before it that really had piss poor ergonomics compared to this gun. This is fairly modern by comparison. Okay, materials used. It's all steel and wood. Durability and reliability. I already talked about that too. Utterly reliable. And because it's steel and wood, durability is the same. It's going to last you your lifetime, probably last till your great grandkids' lifetimes. I mean, unless you really mistreat this gun. Variations. There's a couple of variations on this. One is the open top model is what they called it, and it was a gun like this made from the ground up to be a cartridge gun. So it's more similar to like what this is, but it just kind of goes straight up here instead of having all that BS. Otherwise it's the same gun, and some of the other Richards conversions are even that way. And Cimarron / Uberti does make versions of those also. Accessories, you can get some leather holsters and stuff. Anything you can get for pretty much any revolver. Speed loaders you're not going to be able to get because the only way to load this gun is 1 round at a time through the loading gate, which I showed you at the start of the video. Compatibility with your systems. The only thing this is compatible with is Cowboy lever action 45 long Colt carbine. If you carry one of those out on the range or whatever, if that's all you can afford as your primary combat rifle, which I would kind of find that hard to believe because those are sometimes pretty damn expensive. I guess it depends on if you get a used one versus a new one. If you inherited that gun from your father or something like that, then this would make a good sidearm for you. If you do cowboy action shooting, yeah, this is the type of gun they use. I mean, this and the 1873 Peacemaker. Value is pretty sucky on this by my estimation, because a black powder pistol, it's like $200. maybe 250. This is like 530 to 550, somewhere in there. That's what you're gonna have to pay for it, plus tax. And for that, you could get any gun you want. Any gun. I mean, you could get a brand new Glock for that much. You get a used SIG. You could get a lot of guns. I think that's really where this gun suffers, is the value, because it's really, I would say, a $300 gun, and you're paying $600 or more for it, you know, with tax and everything. But if you're into this and you like it and you want it, there you go. There was something else I was going to talk. Oh yes, I remember what it was. Cimarron / Uberti. You've heard me say that several times now. What do I mean by that? Well, Uberti is a company in Italy. They make only cowboy guns like this. Cimarron is a company here in the United States that imports them. When they import those guns, they clean them up a little bit, maybe throw some better grips on them, engrave the cylinder, do a couple other things to it, put it in their own box, and then sell it as their own gun, even though they're still stamped Uberti on the bottom. So anytime you talk about Cimarron, you are talking about Uberti. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. If you like the video, please thumbs it up, and have a nice day.